All righty, here we go. Okay, so welcome everyone to, this is our third Holy Cross Professionals Insurance Group, and it's our third networking event. We had called it the Holy Cross Alumni Professional Group. I asked Ginny Van Diezen, who was the staff member that we worked with, to change that name because I did not want to have current students who were considering the insurance field or the industry to not want to come to these events, because we, as you know, the Holy Cross alumni are the networking that we have in all fields is really can't be compared with, I don't think, any other school. So we've created this insurance group, and we hope that you will get a lot out of this event. Now, my name is Tom Nagel. I'm from the class of 1970. I'm one of the co-leaders of our group, along with Fred O'Connor from the class of 1984. Fred couldn't be here today. He's still working. I'm retired. He's still working, so he has to travel a lot. He sent somebody, an emissary. His son is right over there, Jim, and we appreciate you coming, Jim. The goal of our group is to encourage professional community and fellowship among the alumni of the College of the Holy Cross. All are welcome, including those who have made their careers in the insurance industry and those considering such a career. We will share ideas through online exchanges, webinars, and on-campus activities. In doing so, we will help share professional expertise among our community. We also want to help one another develop shared business opportunities and encourage students to consider career options in one of the largest and most successful industries in the world economy. Now, our agenda for today is to start with our guest speaker, John Andreoli, MBA, CPCU, LIA. He's a graduate from the Holy Cross class of 1982. And John will speak to us about how he went from being an economics major at Holy Cross to his career in insurance. After John's talk, we will have time for questions of John, followed up by time for networking, which I strongly encourage, especially for our students and young alums. Now, John Andreoli is the president and CEO of the Sullivan Group, which is an independent, regional, full-service insurance and risk management firm located here in Worcester and established in 1957, so it's been around for a long time, older than most of you have been alive. When John was a student here at Holy Cross, he was a 3-year starter at defensive end and linebacker on the varsity football team. John showed his leadership abilities as he served as co-captain of the team in 1981. He was named as the Crusader of the Year in 1982 and was named to the ECAC All-East First Team in 1981 and inducted into the Holy Cross Varsity Club Hall of Fame in 2001. I'd like to personally thank John for taking time from his busy schedule to be with us today, because I know he's a very, very busy person, including head football coach at St. John's High School. And now please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, John Andreoli.
Well, thanks very much for coming out this morning. That's a flattering introduction. I really appreciate the comments. You know, I thought what I'd do is share with you a little bit about my path into the business, probably non-traditional at best, but and also I think some of the opportunities that are now available in this industry that traditionally people, I think, have looked upon as maybe not the most exciting or sexy or growth trajectory businesses relative to what we see out there in the technology, life sciences, and other fields. But it really is, in terms of a landing place for folks with a liberal arts background and a commitment to excellence in their academic studies and the ability to have a predictable, stable career path going forward. I think it's a great place to be. And it cuts across a lot of different industries. Some of the things that are emerging now out of the insurance and risk management services field that I think are very worth taking note of. So if there's still folks come in, please do. So just a little background, Tom had mentioned I've been with the Sullivan Group. I've been there 34 years. I started there in 1983 while I was playing football after graduating here from Holy Cross. And it's been a great place for me. It's, we're a large regional independent insurance and risk management services firm in an environment now where there's significant mergers and acquisitions and national brokers acquiring smaller and independent agencies in the retail side of the business. So it's been a very good run for us. We have kind of a unique model in our business where our producers have the ability to own the business that they produce. So it's a way for us to really attract and retain quality people in an environment typically where there's been, few shareholders, a lot of employees, no ownership. And I think that's been a real success for us. But just to give you a little bit of additional background, I in addition to being at the Sullivan Group, I serve on the board of directors of a community bank here in Central Mass. We're $1.7 billion in assets. And I'll get into that a little bit later in terms of the enterprise risk management science that I think really cuts across a couple of different industries, as well as in the healthcare side at Reliant Medical Group, which is a large physician group here in Central Mass. So those governance positions have really helped leverage some of the risk management and insurance background that I have, on a governance standpoint. But Holy Cross, as I was speaking earlier, my dad was a Holy Cross grad, and I'm a third generation Holy Cross student. My great-grandfather was my grandfather on my mother's side was here. My dad was a basketball player here in 1958, and then I came in thereafter. So third generation. My dad, I look back at him, he's a kid from Stafford Springs, Connecticut that came up here, by himself in 1954, walked on the basketball team, earned a scholarship and started for 3 years. And interesting enough, he went into the insurance business right out of Holy Cross. He was in the Marine Corps and had to figure out a way to support my mom, who was here in Worcester as a school teacher, and found the insurance business as a way for him to kind of use his skill set that he picked up during athletics and competition to build his business. And I'll tell you, he was a tremendous role model for me just because of the discipline and the process that he had in building his business. And I can remember him, at the dining room table every night making phone calls to a lot of Holy Cross alumni or students that were at the time in the ROTC program here at Holy Cross. Several of them were on the way to Vietnam at that time. They had plans to get married. They had plans to build a family. They had military service, and he was talking to them about financial planning before they went off to service. And he was on the phone every night and making appointments, going out there and staying disciplined. And no matter what he was doing, I thought the process that he went through and his commitment to the process was spectacular. And that was a wonderful impact on me. And he did that, and he worked that way, and he built a book of clients of about 5,000 or 6,000 throughout New England over the course of his career, and worked till he passed away a couple of years ago. So I just mentioned that because I think I want to talk a little bit about committing to the process. And the process of being great is really the thing you have to think about in whatever it is that you're doing in your life. And I talk about that with my players all the time. But he was a great influence on so many of us on my generation that ended up going into the insurance business. Craig Saratani, who runs Arthur Gallagher in Boston, he will tell you that the reason he's where he is in the business is because my dad encouraged him to go in. David Murphy, my classmate who was a quarterback here, same thing, still had a very great career in the insurance business and still is. So it's there's a lot of family history in that that got me to where I am. But I mean, for me, I came here as a football player, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life after I got out of Holy Cross. I knew I enjoyed economics and business and that type of thing and management. And we didn't have a business, still don't really, a business curriculum here at Holy Cross. But I think between the economics the accounting, and we had several ROTC courses here that were management courses that were taught by senior members of the military, management leadership, operations management. Some of the great management courses that were on the ROTC side were very helpful. So between those things, I think it gave me a really a great background for what I'm doing now. But I came after I finished playing here at Holy Cross. I wanted to keep playing football. That was important to me at the time. I ended up signing with the Washington Redskins. Bobby Beathard, who was the general manager, was a close confidant of Coach Rick Carter here. And Edward Bennett Williams was a Holy Cross guy. He owned the team at the time. And two of us ended up signing free agent contracts with the Redskins. We went down there and did well, but that was the year they started their run to, I think, 5 Super Bowl appearances in a row, so it was kind of a crowded place to be. So I ended up in the USFL for 2 years, and I wanted to really start a business career at the time I was playing. So I got my licenses for property and casualty and life during the season. And long story short, one of the off seasons, I came home, I opened up the paper, and I saw that there was an insurance agency here in Worcester looking for an account executive. So I picked up the phone and called, and they said, we're really looking for somebody on the front desk, but I'll pass your name along to the guy that runs the place. So Bill Sullivan, who was at the time, there was probably about 6 people in the agency, heard my name, and he knew my dad from the life insurance business, called me up and said, geez, you're still playing, but why don't you think about coming into the business, and you can work during the off season and learn the business and start to build it. So I said, sure, I'll do it. So I came in, and long story short, I answered an ad in the paper, and next thing I knew, I was there. And it was interesting because he had started a very unique concept. There were 3 individuals. Bill Sullivan, Bob Green, and Bill Carrick. Bill Sullivan was a Dartmouth grad, grew up in Worcester, went to work for the Aetna back in the 1950s. And what they had at the time then were they would put you as an agent in their office. They would give you all kinds of support. They would let you build your business. And then at some point when you built enough, you could take it out of the office and have your own agency. Well, there were 3 of those guys that did the same thing. Bill Carrick was a Wharton grad, a different mix of business from down in the central part of the state. And then Bob Green also had an agency here. Well, they put together what they called a cluster at the time. So they basically brought their individual books of business that they all owned. They put them together. They hired 1 CFO, 1 claims person, 1 administrative assistant, and that service group took care of all of them, where they all had ownership of their own business. And it gave them the ability to leverage their expenses and build their businesses even further. So it was really one of the first cluster concepts that came out in the retail agency system. So when I went in there, Bill said to me, he goes, it's important. He goes, the reason I left where I was I didn't have ownership. So we're going to create an ownership structure where the people who produce the business have ownership in their business. So that was really the foundation of what we have today, where we have a retail agency with 55 employees. We have an employee benefits staff that's separate but in their own office. And all of our producers have ownership of their business. And we have a central service company that provides all of the customer service and the client, the insurance company contracts. We've been able to attract guys like Gordy Lockbaum and my brother and Fran Shea and all of my partners that have now, we have a great model where somebody can get into this business on the retail side if they want to do what we do, and that's go out and work with clients and build a business. You can plug into that service model and own from day one, which is really nice for people who want an alternative to maybe going to work for somebody else and trying to buy into some ownership. So that's just a little bit about our firm and how we're set up. But I think I think this the insurance and risk management field is very compelling for people to take a look at because there's so many different avenues within the business. When you look at the overall size of the industry, it's significant. I mean, it's relevant, it's not going away because it's a critical piece of the marketplace. Just the investments alone that the insurance company controls in terms of their bond holdings, the number of people that are employed, the numbers are pretty staggering. I mean, there's 2.5 million people that are employed in the insurance business, and it's about 60-40 between the property and casualty and the life side. But within companies, within changing companies, the whole role for employees in the insurance business has changed. When I first get into the business, there were a lot more layers. There were marketing people who came out and sat with you and tried to generate business from the agencies. Now that's kind of gone away. Now your underwriters are the people that do your business with you and build the product are the marketing people. And that gives them the ability to go out and have ownership in what they do and the client base they build and build the relationships that are important to growing their business. I think in terms of just the size of the industry, even though there's a lot of activity and merger activity going on, there's room for people to come in that are young and take a lot of different paths between the finance side, the underwriting side, the investment side, and the management side. I see, the people that are running companies locally. They're probably my contemporaries now in terms of, age-wise, but they came into the Travelers of the world and, Nationwides and different companies, and they've moved up in different parts of the company, and now they're in senior leadership positions of significant financial institutions. So I think it's an area that, I was talking to Keith earlier. We did one of these about 10 years ago, I think it was, and we had about a similar group that was here. And I talked to several of those kids, and I said, why are you thinking about coming into this business? And a lot of them had been through situations where, maybe their parents had been on the banking side or were in New York City and they were with companies that merged and got acquired. And at some point, they kind of had no control over where their career was going. And at the time, people were working for, I know one of my brothers-in-law went through the same thing, where, worked for a foreign bank, and they just shut the New York office down. And when you're 45 or 50 years old, it's tough to kind of change direction at that time. But, they looked at the insurance industry as a little more stable and predictable and provided a better quality of life. So they had elected to kind of take that path. So I thought that was pretty compelling, and I've talked to people about that since, and some of those folks are still in the business that were at that meeting, 10 years ago, and they're doing very well. The last thing I wanted to speak to, and I think it's very relevant, within business, risk management is a kind of a broad topic, but it is so relevant now to wherever you end up going with your career. I look at, on the banking side, enterprise risk management is, something that we talk about every single day. It's really, when you're in a business, there's certain risks and very important risks that you need to be able to manage and mitigate every day. And the insurance framework and risk management framework gives you the ability, to understand the science of how you do that. And no matter what business you're in, those who are able to, embrace enterprise risk management, which is looking at the overall organization, identifying the risks that you're faced with, measuring them, coming up with a strategy to handle them, and then monitoring how well that process is working, is really, really, relevant in today's business world, whether it's banking, insurance, or life sciences, biotech, whatever it is. So I encourage, that is something you should think about a lot, because as you get up in senior levels of the companies that you're in, whatever it is that you do, there has to be a framework for you to understand risk, measure it, and know how to deal with it, because that's essentially what governance is all about these days. With the cybersecurity risk that's out there for companies, with physical risk for, storms and, pandemic flu and reputational risk and all of these things that companies are faced with across the spectrum of their operations, you really have to understand the framework. And really, when you get into the insurance business, that really is the foundation. That's only one source of how you can handle those risks, but it gives you a very good understanding of an overall framework for mitigating and reducing or eliminating risk. And I think it's something that you're going to hear more and more about, and it's going to be a more important skill set for managers going forward as we go into the next generation. So I didn't want to, I'm willing to be happy to answer any questions, but just to give you a little flavor about the opportunity that I think exists now in the industry, it's better than it's ever been. I think there's quality people that are in the insurance industry that are going to come on campus in the next couple of weeks and start looking for people to join their organizations. There's a lot of different levels at the retail side, at the wholesale side where Keith is, and then at the insurance company level as well. So I think there's all kinds of opportunity that you should really take a look at as a great growth path, to use the skill set you've earned here at Holy Cross. Any questions that I can help?
How would you say when you're out in competition, it's in the field,
Mm-hmm.
it's the flexibility and also how your competitors are sometimes, you'll be working with some of those people sometimes, and how do you, the dynamics of the interaction of the business between competitors and your people, your own groups inside, and how to manage that, and how it all, sometimes you never know who you're going to be working with, and that's why relationships in the industry are important. Kind of maybe expand upon that.
Yeah, I think, and this really this is one of the lessons you'll learn in athletics. You got to commit to the process of being great. I picked that up along the line somewhere. I'm not sure where I heard it, but it really speaks to saying, okay, anything that I approach, it's really committing to the process, and it's being prepared, it's doing the work up front, so that you can make it a more predictable and stable outcome, and consistent as well, so that whoever you're working with, you're establishing consistency and predictability. And if I bring a risk to you, if the wall's blue, the wall's blue, and that gives people the ability to have confidence in working with you. And it's really, when you say it's a people business, it's developing that confidence and that consistency by doing things the same way all the time, and being prepared and making sure that you do your homework up front, so that your submission or your risk gets to the top of the pile and gets their best effort. And I think when you're able to do that, people want to work on things where they can have success and they can repeat it. And I think you need to use that process that's consistent and it's stable and it's predictable over time, no matter who you're working with. So you're getting the same outcome from us all the time. Tom, yeah.
John, have your Holy Cross associations and connections helped in your career, do you believe?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one of the greatest networks available. If you, it's always interesting when you're going on looking at a board of directors, or you're looking at management, and you see somebody, has a Holy Cross background or some affiliation with Holy Cross. People are always willing to stop and take time to talk to you. There's no doubt about it. I've never met somebody, if I said, I was Holy Cross of 1982, and or you're able to establish a connection. That's one of the true gems, no matter what you decide to do. It really is a tremendous empowerment to be able to use that affiliation and that association. So, and not only that, but you can pick up the phone and call somebody, and it's wonderful how they like to help people. I mean, I think that's one of the common threads of this school and the Jesuit education is people enjoy helping out other people. I mean, it's great when a kid coming out that calls me up and says, geez, I'd like to talk to you. Somebody said I should come in, and we'll do whatever we can. We'll huddle around, we'll figure out how we can help somebody. And anybody in this room would do the same thing. It's just kind of what's in Holy Cross's DNA. So I think it's a great thing to take advantage of, and it's something that comes with the purple.
I don't want to monopolize the questions, but I do have a bunch of them. You have both an MBA and CPCU designation. Have either or both of them helped in your success, do you believe?
I think both of them, the CPCU was more of a high-level macro view of the insurance industry, not so much, technical technical on-point industry-specific knowledge, but it gave an overview of the legal system, insurance company operations, property insurance generally, that type of training, and it was very helpful. Just to go through that process early in my career, and it also demonstrates a commitment to the business. I think that's, I think a very important thing. The MBA was, obviously at night, and I did it with a finance emphasis, which I think was very helpful for what I'm doing now, because I didn't have a lot of, I had some accounting here and finance, but not, it was more, the economic curriculum, which is more macro and that type of thing. But it helped a lot in terms of valuations and, and dissecting financial statements and looking at someone's financial statements and understanding the risk factors there for some of the things that we do now. So, and I think also taking that into some of the governance roles I have, just the ability to look at a big picture and come up with, a framework to process certain, certain goals. That I think has been very helpful. And I'm a big proponent of keeping your saw sharp and lifelong learning. And I think, that's something that people should try to do as often as they can. So I was very fortunate to be at my wife. Believe me, I had a lot of nights I was out of the house at class and stuff, but she was great, and I got a chance to do that over a 5 or 6 year period.
You chose the agency as opposed to working for a carrier, an insurance company. I guess what appealed to you, you've already talked a little bit about that, but what appealed to you about that? Apparently you have no regrets in making
No.
the decision you made.
Well, I really didn't know any other way. Because I was playing football at the time. I was 6 months a year, and this gave me the ability to kind of come in and out of that at the time I was playing. And then I was in an environment where I got to build. It started to build, and for me it was just a good fit for me because I could take the same disciplines that I learned here and on the field and translate them into a process that was successful in trying to build my client base. And I think the other thing that I really enjoyed about it was in my business, you can focus on things that you like. There's no question about it. I have guys in my office that do life sciences business and biotechnology business, and that's all they want to do. But for me, I love different companies that do things well, whether they're construction or they're manufacturing or they're banks or they're distributors. I like to look at those operations and find a way to manage their risk, develop client relationships, and sustain those over time. So I just didn't see myself as going the company route for a variety of reasons. One was because I was playing ball and I started to build my business over the 2 or 3 year period when I was doing that. And when it started to get more and more success, and we brought other guys in and gals in, and we built a business, and it was just it was a perfect fit for me at that time. I think I missed a little bit about being in a company environment. Some of the things I think are I look back on and say it would have been nice to have had that that training and some of the resources that insurance carriers had that we don't have on the agency side. But overall, I'm happy where we ended up being.
You talked a bit about the stability of the insurance business.
Sure.
And I've heard some kind of conflicting views about this with technology and AI coming into the business. And I was just wondering, in insurance, but also just more generally, how can you decide whether a job is going to be stable?
I had this conversation with, I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago with the Sentry Insurance Company folks. And they're a mutual insurance company that's based out in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, about $4.5 billion in surplus. They're a major writer of casualty lines, and you guys know who they are, and they're great. But like so many other companies, they made a huge investment in technology. And technology, I think the way to embrace technology is it's going to provide data, and data analytics are so important to whatever business you're in these days. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a person that is able to take the data and make the decision on that art, not science, of whether a risk and all the factors make sense. I mean, there's many accounts that we bring in that on paper you say, well, this isn't our appetite. But we'll often argue that it's a good company in a tough line of business, but it's a really well-run company. And over time, it's going to be a very good relationship for the insurer and the client to have a long-standing relationship. So I don't think technology is going to displace the human side of the business. It can't happen. I mean, will it change? I think it will. I think you're seeing it today in the distribution models that are happening, that are out there. Personal lines is increasingly being distributed online. Geico has gone to the #2 auto insurance writer in Massachusetts in about 4 years. It used to be, a new entrant. But the millennial generation can do it on their smartphone, they can buy it. But I think at some point, there is the need for confidence in the people that are handling that transaction for you. And if you're not paying a lot more for it, I think it's a value. So I think technology is going to supplement, what's out there now. It's going to provide tremendous data analytics. It's going to help the underwriters make better decisions and the companies make better decisions, but it's not going to displace people from a business that's reliant on relationships. Yeah.
So sort of to piggyback off that question about security and new challenges facing the industry, you also talked a little bit about mergers and new types of risk constantly being introduced into the industry. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that are faced in the industry right now, and maybe even coming down the line, that are going to need to be at some point addressed by the industry itself?
Okay. Well, I think the growth is certainly a significant issue. Here's what happens in a transaction. You have a risk that you need to insure. You pay the insurance company $100 to insure it. The insurance company takes that money, they invest it in treasuries, which right now are at an all-time low. And they make money in two ways. They basically make money on their investment income, and to the extent that they can write your business at a profit. So in other words, they pay out less claims than their expenses and your claims relate to that dollar. So underwriting profit and investment income. The investment income has been very difficult for a long time, probably 10 years. I mean, the 10-year Treasury's been 250, 260, 240. The bonds that are rolling off and they're reinvesting these bonds in lower yields puts more pressure on them to write profitable business. It's really, they have to make money on the underwriting side. And it's hard to grow because there's so much capital out there that he may be willing to write your risk for 15% less than he will. So there's pressure on the underwriting side, and that's creating the need to put things together and get efficiencies, in delivering the product. So that's driving kind of the merger and acquisition mentality, I think, out there now. And on the agency side, there's private equity. There's been more mergers and acquisitions in the last 12 months in Massachusetts in particular than any year before. And what's happening is a lot of the larger multinationals are finding it difficult to grow their business by 7 or 8 or 9% a year organically. So for them to go out and buy an agency that provides stable cash flows, kind of a sticky customer base, it's an ideal way to grow the business without going out there and writing them one at a time. So there's pressure on mergers and acquisitions in the agency side, just like there are on the company side. but that's still creating more you can't do it with less people. In some cases, yeah, you can combine the technology and the finance functions, but you still need to have customer-facing people that can deliver the product. So I think, there's going to be more of the same, mergers and acquisitions, because of the amount of capital in the business and the amount of focus on underwriting profits it's competitive, and that's going to continue to create newly emerging organizations on the retail side and the distribution side. So hopefully we'll all see you in the the convention in a couple of years. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, John.
All righty.
I thought that was great talk, John. I appreciate you coming, and especially, as I said earlier, John is a very busy guy, so for us to get him today, we really appreciate him scheduling to share his thoughts about his insurance career with us. And a bunch of people I would like to thank before we get into any additional networking and questions. I'm sure John would hang around if anybody wants to talk one-on-one about any questions about the agency side. So I do want to thank again Fred O'Connor for his leadership of our group. I want to thank Ginny Van Diezen for all her work, and good luck in the future. She worked closely with with us, and we appreciate everything she did. Professor Chu is here as well, and I guess hopefully the current students know you, right? Some of these are from your business group. We appreciate that. I want to thank also Kristen Dyer for leading staff for our group. When Ginny left, Kristen kind of took over. She also had Tom Cadigan and Sarah Port work for some of the logistical support today. I want to thank them as well. But most importantly, I really want to thank all of you attendees. I really would like those of us in the group who signed up, if you haven't already, please sign that. Joe's there?
Yeah, right here.
So we'd like to build our group. We'd like you, especially the current students, talk this group up, talk about insurance. John, I guess your father was in the industry, and I didn't have that advantage when I came here. I was a history major, and I wasn't sure. Everybody said I was either going to be, I had to be an attorney. You're a history major, you have to be an attorney, or you have to become a history teacher. That's one of the two things that you had to become. I kind of fell into it. My older brother graduated a year before me here, and he went in the industry, so I also had that. But I have to tell you, in my 4 years here, I think the fact that a lot of you seniors and juniors are here, you're listening to these kinds of things, exploring opportunities, that's great. You've got an advantage over us, I'll just say, how should I say it, older people. I was, as I said, I was here for 4 years, and I had no clue what I was going to do. Didn't even think of insurance until my brother did it, and I just sort of followed him. But he was an underwriter, and I went into claims and did some other stuff. But anyway, talk this up, if you would. Talk this about the insurance industry. Again, I want to reinforce what John said. There's like 2.5 million people in the insurance industry. Okay, so what do we have? 300 million people in the United States. There's 2.5 million of them are in the insurance industry. So your takeaway should be use your Holy Cross affiliation to network, network, network. For those of you who were at our panel discussion last homecoming, that's what they all said. Network, network, network. Use your connections with Holy Cross. And for those of you who have graduated and are alums, and you might be in the insurance industry, please, if you remember that movie, it might be before some of your times, pay it forward, okay? Help out. Again, I want to repeat what John said. There are no Holy Cross alums that I've ever encountered who will not help another Holy Cross person, unless it's unethical or illegal. Otherwise, you're going to get as much help as you possibly can. So now I invite you, we have coffee and some munchies there, we got some muffins and so forth. Help yourself, and please take some more time here to meet fellow alums and students and make some connections. So thank you very much for coming.
Hey, Tom, can I say, give a little quick update?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You want to come up, Dave?
No, I can.
All right.
So, I just want to let you know, John, you mentioned that when you were a student here, they only had econ and accounting and maybe a few ROTC courses.
Right.
Management. Well, fast forward to today, we now have a business certificate program, and Deidre just did the first intro to business workshop last week as part of it. So the purpose of this business certificate program is to let our students learn and gain a minimum level of business literacy about generally what business is, so that when they go out to interview, they have their bucket somewhat filled about the knowledge about business, number one. Number two, we help them articulate the connection between their liberal arts education at Holy Cross to their business interests. So if Deidre is a poli-sci major interested in insurance, she's got to be able to articulate to you how her poli-sci major contributes and adds value to her interest in insurance, so that she's going to add value to your company over that of the insurance majors from UMass, as an example. So that's the two purposes of our program. So within this program, we offer a certificate of readiness, ready for the job market, when they finish. And so Deidre, in a couple of years, will have the certificate. You're going to finish it, right?
She'll finish.
Deidre's going to finish it and get the certificate and be ready for the job market. And in so doing, I'm always looking to develop experiences and exposures for our students to various industries. So insurance is one of them. And I'd like to spread the word that you are the perfect teachers for these workshops, because none of our teachers are faculty. We don't have them. So we have, I rely on people like John and all of you to come back and help expose our students to what industry insurance is about and help them get better informed about it. So these workshops are probably just half a day, a few hours, just to give them the heads up of insurance. Insurance is a black box. We hear the word a lot. We don't really know how it works. We think oftentimes that it's cold calling someone to try to sell them stuff that they don't need, and that's a misnomer. And we need to dispel that and really open up the box and let people see, especially our students, to see what is insurance and what place they might have within that industry. So I encourage you to just keep in touch. I'm going to make a photocopy of that list, and I'll be reaching out to some of you here to think about maybe a half day, a Saturday morning workshop on insurance. Thank you.
You know, I will be remiss if I
Thank you
didn't
so much.
say one thing that I think